On October 31st, 2024, one of the worst games I've ever played came out, Dragon Age The Veilguard, the latest entry in a long-running and beloved RPG franchise. Its release would be riddled with the typical culture war debates that are oh so prevalent on the internet, as people would either feel compelled to sing its praises or to try and tear it down in the name of whatever side they were on. I had watched the marketing for this game and was not impressed, and I was even put off. The over-the-top, goofy, cartoon-like humor, if you can even call it that, which plagued the trailers, did not leave a good impression on me. But I wanted to see just what this game was all about. I grew up on Dragon Age, so out of what I can only describe as morbid curiosity, I decided to take the plunge and play Dragon Age The Veilguard, and was thoroughly blown away by how bad this game truly was. For an RPG, I consider two things to be more important than all others: gameplay and story. Both are the biggest issues I have with the game. The two most important elements were not just mid, they were just plain bad. But why was this game so bad? Well, on June 11th, 2025, Bloomberg writer Jason Schreier would publish an article largely detailing what went wrong for this game. And viewing the game and its myriad problems through this perspective makes every domino fall into place. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and let's talk about the modern gaming plague: trend chasing. Dragon Age The Veilguard's development was indecisive at best. Starting off as a single-player game, it would, in October 2017, be pivoted by EA themselves to a live service game. Then not until December 2020, the heads of both the studio and franchise would resign, and according to Jason Schreier, the new studio head, Gary McKay, revealed Dragon Age would return to the realm of single player. An undesirable series of events would thus emerge throughout Veilguard's development, where they would believe themselves to be under an extreme time crunch of upwards of a year to a year and a half, limiting the scope of what the game could realistically be and the types of stories they could tell, only for the game to be delayed again, but they were then stuck with the limited scope and vision of the time crunch period that they thought they were under. When eventually an alpha for the game would finally be playable and they sought feedback at the end of 2022, they were met with similar criticism across the board that the game just lacked meaningful choices with meaningful consequences. So they would have to shoehorn in some scenarios like choosing which city to save and just hopefully find a way to make it all work. I've played the majority of this game's story. They did a decent-ish job at that, and it was one of the few highlights in this game. But none of the experience outside of the visual presentation of this game, and especially this game's world, which is absolutely downright impressive at times, I might add, is able to recapture those moments I spent in awe playing Dragon Age Origins all those years ago. And I think a lot of these issues were abundantly clear even in the trailers. I did a video a while back comparing one of the trailers for Dragon Age Origins to a trailer from Dragon Age The Veilguard. The tone, the atmosphere, just the feel of it all is so strikingly different that it borderline doesn't feel as if it's from the same series. One trailer reeked of really cool and compelling high fantasy, with interesting plot premises and mysteries hanging over what was happening that you wanted to find out more about because they were simply cool, and the other felt as if it was advertising some bad YouTube animation series. Now, despite all of this, did you think it would be just smooth sailing until the game was shipped? Oh no, this story isn't over yet, because in an effort to speed things along in 2023, Bioware brought some people from the Mass Effect team over, and because apparently nothing could go right for this game's development, there were tensions between the two teams, and their two different styles of development. According to Jason Schreier's article, internally the Dragon Age team was likened to a pirate ship, whereas the Mass Effect crew were the USS Enterprise, a reference to the rigid structure of a Star Trek space crew. Clashing viewpoints, simmering tensions, it would all lead to, let's call it heated air within Bioware, as the Mass Effect team seemingly got what it always wanted, or at least had preferential treatment, according to David Geider, who is a former lead writer on the Dragon Age franchise, again according to Schreier. And this article is absolutely fascinating, just seeing what all led to the end product we got with Dragon Age The Veilguard. Let's talk about the tone. Remember the one Veilguard trailer that I just brought up, where they introduced the main characters like it was some cheap parody of a cartoon dripping with the online snark of the 2010s that I largely view to be wholly off-putting and abhorrent? Well, I was expecting to see that style of presentation and humor in-game as well. And when I actually played Dragon Age The Veilguard, while the character designs and overall art felt like it would contain that style of, well, let's call it humor for lack of an actual word to describe it, the game doesn't really have much of any of that. Sure, maybe a few cherry-picked moments, but overall, the game just has a more serious tone and is largely devoid of actual humor. They try to insert some more lighthearted sections, but the game's so devoid of personality and character and charisma, most of the time it just comes off as exposition just told with less tension. And while that may sound like a good thing compared to the possible alternative, it's the other side of a spectrum for me, where the game now just lacks personality and character, where the dialogue far too often serves as nothing more than a vehicle for exposition that just hits you like a truck does to an isekai protagonist in an anime. Finding a line of dialogue that actually contains a human emotion seems like the equivalent of finding out your packet of candy has an extra piece in it. Surprising to say the least, but it's oh so fleeting. It makes the characters just hollow, combined with a story that feels like filler till the next soulless meeting. In a world that can be absolutely breathtaking to look at, but feels so hollow because you just don't end up caring, or at least I didn't, about anyone or any place. This game's problems aren't because one of the characters is non-binary, or because it's quote-unquote woke, and the game's not good, well, overall, but especially because of the combat or the characters being quirky, or because the game is colorful. The game had a deeply flawed development cycle racked by indecision without a cohesive vision throughout most of it, as it swan-dived from single-player to multiplayer live service slop back again to single-player. In a desperate attempt to chase trends and markets, it reeks of a game that just needed time and a singular vision for what it should have been instead of this cobbled-together game that we got. It's clear that there was love and passion poured into elements of this game, but that isn't enough to make it even passable in my eyes. Dragon Age suffered from taking away the heart and soul of what it meant to be Dragon Age, and it also just took way too much time to get another entry out after Inquisition. And this was compounded by the fact that higher-ups desperately wanted to chase the money of live service and were willing to abandon what Dragon Age was known for and loved for in the name of the almighty dollar, all the while throwing people with wildly different ideas about what this game should be and how it should end up. People online can try and blame whatever they want for the game's failure, whether that be people calling the game woke or people decrying content creators and online voices for calling it thus and believing that's the reason the game didn't end up doing well. But at the end of it all, as we've seen time and time again online, the loud voices you hear don't always translate to what the common consumer thinks or how they act. I tend to find the answer to be far simpler than most think when it comes to a majority of these situations. The game was simply bad. People were intrigued at the beginning because it was Dragon Age, but as it became a known thing, it just wasn't good, and didn't really grab the hearts and minds of people to the same level Dragon Age used to, let alone other games that were coming out at the time or were to come out. The game's combat is stale, weirdly quick and floaty, and not in a good way, all the while missing out on a sense of viscerality to give the attacks and animations weight. It feels like a diet action RPG with Mass Effect abilities thrown on top of it, but none of the health benefits of being diet. All the while, nothing feels impactful or meaningful, and it leads to the combat feeling decent at first, but rapidly descending to being dull and uninteresting as you put hours into it, and the hollowness of it all just is laid bare. It's hyper repetitive, party interactions are minimal at best, just amounting to existing for a couple abilities that you can synergize together, and I mean in the most bare bones way possible, like you do this ability first and then this one has an extra effect. And it leads to all combat situations largely feeling the same. If they have a shield, you use the abilities or attacks that you have that break shields. Duh. Just dodge spam everything else to get out of most situations because your guy feels as if they move faster than Sonic the Hedgehog at times. And again, any enemy that doesn't roll over just devolves to this bloated slog as you whittle down a giant sack of HP and just dodge whatever is thrown at you. Sometimes you might need to pick a direction to dodge, and I don't know, I'm sorry, but personally for a giant RPG that goes on for at least what is supposed to be tens and tens of hours, that's simply not good enough or compelling enough for me. Nor does it provide enough depth or intrigue to make me want to learn more about it because it doesn't feel as if there's anything interesting to learn. Combine that with characters that feel more robotic and at times lack character, even more so than actual machines, and it's little wonder why this game was just kinda laughed at and moved on from people. And I mean by so many people. And like, yeah, that may sound cruel, but I think people are tired of beloved IPs and series being dragged through the mud by giant corporations that simply want to chase the latest trend instead of allocating sufficient time and resources and personnel to give the IP the love and attention it needs. Instead, letting the series be hacked to pieces by differing visions and strung up like some makeshift Halloween decor at the last second from the scraps of what you had available, and the only reason you put it up was because you wanted to be included. People wanted Dragon Age, and they got Dragon Age in name only. And serving almost to symbolize this game's indecisive production, this game's name was originally Dragon Age The Dreadwolf, and was later changed to Veilguard. Actually it's The Veilguard. The game looked boring combat-wise, with characters that possessed the personality of a Scantron test, and character design that reeked of live service slop we have been inundated with for over a decade as game upon game try to chase the Fortnite aesthetic. But you're not Fortnite, you're supposed to be Dragon Age, and the market responded accordingly. I fully recommend you all to read the Jason Schreier article in the description down below. It's a captivating read, and as someone who has played a large chunk of Dragon Age The Veilguard, how we got that end product makes a hell of a lot more sense now. But it's one of the most dangerous consequences of online discourse, especially when it concerns the culture war stuff. It moves and shifts the conversation away from the actual problems the game has, just so somebody can gather clicks and fulfill their agenda online, all the while latching onto whatever comes out next that they can parrot the exact same points about. People are entitled to their opinion, but let's not look away from reality here. The reason Dragon Age The Veilguard didn't do well is because the game was simply bad. Thank you all for tuning in, my pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, leave a comment down below. Let's get some positivity going. What's been one of your favorite games that you have played in the last couple of years? And if you would like to share, what's one of your favorite moments from that game? Or one of your favorite memories? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again.